I never stopped you from having children, Phil. I only made sure you couldn't. Those were the last words Janelle whispered to her husband before dropping the glass of wine she had just drugged, the same way she'd done for 4 years. She didn't know Phil had already uncovered every secret, every prescription, every lie. What followed would become one of the most chilling revenge stories in modern marriage. What kind of woman poisons her own husband just to keep him from becoming a father? That's the question I want you to think about as I tell you this story. Imagine being married to someone you love, trust, and build your life with, only to discover years later that every meal, every drink, every kiss has been laced with betrayal. How would you react? What would you do if the person you trusted most in the world secretly destroyed your chance at the one thing you desired most? This is not just a story about marriage. It's a story about trust, betrayal, secrets, and the price of vanity. And as you listen, I want you to ask yourself, if you were in Phil's shoes, what choice would you make? Walk away quietly, or strike back with something so unexpected it would change everything? Phil Andrews was the kind of man everyone admired. At 36, he was already a senior banker at one of New York's largest investment firms. His colleagues called him the man with the Midas touch. His suits were always sharp, his smile warm, his handshake confident. Yet what people envied most wasn't his career, it was his marriage. Phil's wife, Janelle, had once graced magazine covers as a model. Even after stepping away from the spotlight, her beauty still made heads turn. Wherever they went, they were the perfect couple, the banker and the beauty. But beneath that glossy surface was a shadow no one could see. They had been married for 4 years, 4 long years without a child. For Phil, the absence was like a wound that wouldn't heal. He dreamed of holding a son, of hearing a daughter laugh, of being called dad. He wanted the chaos of toys on the living room floor, the warmth of bedtime stories, the pride of teaching a child how to ride a bike. But Janelle? She brushed it off every time. "We have plenty of time, Phil," she would say with a casual wave. "Let's just enjoy our life together. Children change everything, and we're not ready yet." Phil tried to believe her. At first, he told himself it was timing, then stress, then maybe fate. But deep inside, something gnawed at him. Why wasn't Janelle ever worried? Why did she never share his longing? And why, after 4 years, did nothing change? One night, lying awake beside her, Phil thought of his parents, his father's joy at watching him grow, his mother's endless love. He wanted that too. He deserved it. So he made a decision that would crack open the perfect shell of their marriage. He booked a secret appointment with a doctor. The tests came back with results that nearly knocked the breath from his lungs. Phil wasn't sick. He wasn't infertile. He was being drugged. Unusual levels of contraceptive chemicals were in his system. Substances he never took, never asked for, never even touched. The only possible explanation? Someone close to him was poisoning him, drop by drop, meal by meal. And who else shared his every bite, his every drink, his every moment? But Janelle. Phil didn't confront her. Not yet. He carried the weight of the truth in silence, wearing his perfect smile in public while his heart boiled in private. He needed to be sure. He needed to be careful. Because if Janelle really was behind this, it wasn't just betrayal. It was war. Phil carried the doctor's report in his briefcase like a loaded gun. Each word on the page screamed betrayal, but his face betrayed nothing. At the office, he laughed with colleagues, shook hands with clients, and gave motivational speeches at board meetings. But inside, he was calculating, plotting, waiting. If Janelle had really been poisoning him, then every smile she gave, every kiss she planted, was nothing but camouflage. He had to be smart. One wrong move and she would vanish behind her lies, maybe even turn the tables on him. So Phil began to test her. He stopped eating her food. At breakfast, when she made him coffee, he would pour it down the sink and grab one at Starbucks instead. At dinner, he'd claim late nights at work, arriving home after she had already eaten. And when he did sit across from her at the dining table, he pushed the food around, pretending to be distracted by emails on his phone. But he didn't stop there. Quietly, he sent samples, half-empty glasses of wine, leftover pasta, even a slice of cheesecake, to a private lab he found online. He told no one, not even his closest friend at work. The results returned exactly what he feared. Traces of the same chemicals the doctor found in his body. Every time the answer was the same. He was being poisoned in his own home. Phil's chest tightened with rage, but he didn't confront Janelle. Instead, he studied her like a detective watching a suspect. At parties, she played the role of the perfect wife, clinging to his arm, laughing at his jokes, dazzling their friends. Yet when the topic of children came up, Phil noticed the faintest flicker of discomfort in her eyes. She'd sip her wine faster, change the subject, or brush it off with her practiced line. "We have all the time in the world." But now, Phil knew the truth. They didn't have time. Janelle had stolen it. Late at night, when she fell asleep beside him, Phil lay awake staring at the ceiling, his mind spiraling. Why would she do it? Fear of losing her beauty? Fear of motherhood? Or was there a darker reason he hadn't uncovered yet? The silence between them grew heavier. She noticed it too. "Phil, is something wrong?" she asked one evening, brushing her hand over his arm. He forced a smile. "Just work, long hours. You know how it is." She kissed his cheek, satisfied with the lie. But Phil wasn't satisfied. Not anymore. He was already planning his next move. If Janelle had turned their marriage into a game of betrayal, then he would learn to play, and play better. Because Phil wasn't just a husband anymore. He was a man preparing for war. Phil's life became a silent movie of suspicion. He smiled in public, but behind closed doors, his world had gone cold. Every time Janelle brought him a plate of food, he saw not dinner, but danger. Every kiss felt rehearsed. Every "I love you" sounded like strategy. He couldn't confront her yet. Not without proof solid enough to destroy the mask she wore. But living in that house with her was torture. The laughter that once filled their home had turned into uneasy silence, and the warmth between them had died long before the truth surfaced. Then came Susie. Susie Miller had been Janelle's closest friend since college. Bright, lively, the kind of woman who made a room feel lighter. She often visited their home, usually bringing wine or gossip to share. But lately, Phil noticed something different in her eyes, concern. "Phil," she said one evening after Janelle stepped out to take a phone call, "you've changed. You're distant. Is everything okay?" He hesitated. He wanted to tell her everything, but he knew it wasn't safe. Still, something in her gentle tone cracked his wall. "It's nothing serious," he lied softly. "Just stress. Work's been insane lately." Susie studied him for a moment, her voice lowering. "You know you can talk to me, right? Janelle doesn't always see when something's wrong." Those words lingered long after she left. Janelle didn't see anymore. She saw only herself, her reflection, her beauty, her image. But not him, not his pain. Over the next few weeks, Susie kept checking in. Little texts, coffee invites, harmless at first. But Phil found comfort in her kindness. For the first time in months, someone looked at him and actually saw him. One Friday night, Janelle was away on a modeling job in Miami. Susie dropped by with dinner, saying she didn't want him to eat alone. They sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights. The air was cool. Soft jazz played in the background, and for a moment, Phil forgot the poison, the lies, the games. "You deserve to be happy, Phil," Susie whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "You've always given so much. Maybe it's time someone gave something back." The space between them closed slowly, naturally, like two people pulled together by pain they didn't plan to share. When their lips met, it wasn't passion at first. It was relief, a desperate exhale of months of loneliness. By the time Janelle returned 2 days later, the affair had already begun. Quiet, careful, hidden beneath polite smiles and perfect manners. Phil didn't intend for it to go that far, but as weeks passed, his guilt began to fade, replaced by something he hadn't felt in years: peace. And then, one morning, Susie called him. Her voice was shaking. "Phil, I took a test. I'm pregnant." Phil froze. His breath caught. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The irony was too cruel to ignore. The one thing Janelle had denied him had just arrived through her best friend. Phil stared at the phone long after the call ended. The words, "I'm pregnant," echoed in his head like thunder. For a moment, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After years of being drugged, stripped of his chance at fatherhood, life had given him back what Janelle stole. But it came wrapped in chaos. Susie was terrified. "Phil, what are we going to do?" she asked when they met later that day. Her hands shook as she held her coffee cup. "Janelle's my friend. She'll never forgive me." Phil's jaw tightened. "She's not who you think she is, Susie. She's been poisoning me for years." Susie froze, her eyes wide. "What are you talking about?" Phil told her everything: the doctor's report, the lab results, the food tests. Susie's face turned pale. "You mean she did that just to stop you from having kids?" "She never wanted children," Phil said bitterly. "She wanted her looks, her freedom, her perfect little image." Susie covered her mouth, tears welling. "Phil, that's evil." He nodded. "And now, she's going to learn what betrayal feels like." But fate was already moving faster than he could plan. That weekend, Janelle came home early from a fashion event. As she unpacked her bag, she found something that didn't belong to her: a small gold bracelet under the bed. Susie's bracelet. Her stomach dropped. She recognized it instantly. It had Susie's initials engraved inside. A cold realization slithered through her. She didn't confront Phil right away. Instead, she watched. She noticed how he smiled at his phone more often, how he started humming in the mornings again. Happiness. A kind of joy she hadn't seen in years. But it wasn't for her. Janelle felt the panic grow inside her like wildfire. She had always controlled the narrative: her body, her image, her marriage. But now, something was slipping. Phil was slipping. 3 nights later, she decided to test him. "Phil," she said sweetly as they sat at dinner, "I ran into Susie today. She looked tired, maybe even sick. You've talked to her lately?" Phil looked up from his plate, expression steady. "Not really. Why?" "Oh, no reason," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I just thought you two were closer these days." For the first time, Phil saw something new in her gaze: fear. She was starting to sense the truth. He leaned back, forcing calm. "You worry too much, Janelle." She tilted her head, studying him. "Maybe. But I've learned something lately, Phil. Sometimes the person you trust the most is the one who's already betrayed you." The words hung heavy in the air. Neither of them blinked. Neither spoke. In that moment, they both knew. Whatever was coming next wouldn't just destroy their marriage. It would destroy everything. Janelle couldn't sleep. Every shadow in the room felt alive, whispering secrets she was too afraid to face. Susie's bracelet wasn't just jewelry. It was evidence. And Phil's sudden distance, his quiet confidence, his evasive tone, they all screamed one thing: betrayal. The next morning, she put on her calmest face and started digging. She scrolled through Susie's social media, reading between the lines of every caption. Then she found it, a photo posted 2 weeks ago. A glass of wine on a balcony that looked hauntingly familiar. Her balcony. Janelle's hands trembled. Her best friend. Her husband. The humiliation burned deeper than the betrayal itself. She had built a life around control. Her looks, her marriage, her reputation. But now she realized she'd lost everything she thought she owned. She didn't confront him immediately. Instead, she decided to confirm it in the cruelest way possible. That evening, Phil came home from work to find the table set perfectly. Candles, wine, her best dress, the smell of roasted salmon. It was a scene of domestic peace, but the air was heavy with tension. "You went all out tonight," Phil said cautiously. "I thought we deserved a special dinner," Janelle replied, her voice sweet but sharp. "After all, we've both been busy." He froze, meeting her gaze. "Busy?" She smiled, pouring him a glass of wine. "Yes, you with your work, me with my thoughts, and Susie with whatever she's been up to lately." Phil's stomach turned. He hadn't planned for this moment, not like this. "Janelle," he said slowly, "if you have something to say, say it." She leaned forward, eyes glinting. "Fine. Tell me, Phil. Does betrayal taste as bitter as the poison you've been feeding me?" He went cold. She knew. Not everything, but enough. "What did you do, Janelle?" he whispered. Her laugh was hollow. "What I did? You think I don't know? I found her bracelet. I saw the way you smile at your phone. You didn't even hide it well." Phil pushed his chair back, anger flashing. "You poisoned me for years, Janelle. You stole my chance to be a father. You turned our marriage into a cage. And you're asking me what I did?" Her face twisted, part rage, part pain. "You don't understand, Phil. I couldn't lose you. I couldn't let a child change us. You would have stopped loving me. I did it because I loved you too much." Phil stood slowly, his voice low and cold. "No, Janelle. You did it because you loved yourself more." Silence. Then softly, Janelle asked, "Is it true? Is she pregnant?" Phil didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence said everything. Janelle's glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. In that instant, the war between them officially began. The silence after that night stretched for days. Janelle moved through the house like a ghost, makeup perfect but hollow-eyed. Phil barely spoke. Their marriage, once a display of glamour and charm, now felt like a crime scene. But beneath her calm, Janelle's mind was racing. She wasn't the kind of woman to crumble. No, she rebuilt herself from chaos. And if Phil thought he could humiliate her, destroy her image, and walk away with her best friend, he didn't know who he was dealing with. She started small. First, she visited Susie, showed up unannounced with that flawless smile. Susie, already nervous, invited her in, pretending everything was normal. But Janelle could sense the fear, the quick breaths, the shaking hands. "How are you, Susie?" Janelle asked, her tone sugar-sweet. "You've been quiet lately." Susie swallowed hard. "Just busy. You know, work and—" "Oh, I know," Janelle interrupted gently. "And congratulations, by the way." Susie froze. Her face went pale. What do you mean?" Janelle smiled faintly. "You're glowing. Must be something special in your life right now." Susie couldn't speak. Her silence was confirmation enough. When Janelle left, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply stared at her reflection in the car mirror and whispered, "You took everything from me, Susie, but I'll take something back." At home, Phil noticed subtle changes. The poisoned food stopped. The sweet tone returned. She even started packing him lunch again, saying, "I've missed taking care of you." But Phil wasn't fooled. He never touched the food. He'd already learned that lesson. He also noticed something darker. Janelle had begun cleaning out their accounts, transferring money, selling jewelry, closing joint investments. She was preparing for war, just not the kind he expected. When he confronted her, she looked him dead in the eye. "You think you're leaving me for her? You'll walk out of this marriage with nothing. Not a dollar. Not a reputation." Phil's voice was steady, but cold. "I don't care about money, Janelle. I care about peace. Something you've never given me." Her lips curved into a bitter smile. "Peace is overrated. Power lasts longer." That night, Phil packed a small bag and checked into a hotel across town. He needed space to think, to plan. But when he turned on the TV the next morning, his world tilted. A gossip show was running a segment titled Banker's Secret Scandal. Pictures of him and Susie flashed across the screen. Someone had leaked everything, the affair, the pregnancy, his private life. And he didn't have to guess who did it. Janelle had beaten him to the punch. But Phil wasn't done. Not yet. She wanted war. He would show her what war truly looked like. The scandal spread like wildfire. In less than 48 hours, Phil's picture was everywhere. News blogs, gossip sites, and even finance magazines that once praised him. Banker's affair exposed. Model wife betrayed. At first, he wanted to disappear. Years of work, his reputation, his peace, all dragged through the mud. But once the shock passed, something inside him hardened. He wasn't going to run. He was going to reclaim everything Janelle tried to destroy. His name, his dignity, and his future. Phil knew her weakness better than anyone. Her image. She lived for admiration, for the illusion of perfection. So he decided to break her where it hurt most, by stripping away that illusion. He started with precision. His legal team quietly began documenting everything. Medical records, the lab tests showing the contraceptive drugs, even the receipts from the lab deliveries. He built his case piece by piece, not out of rage, but strategy. Meanwhile, he played his part perfectly in public. To the media, he remained calm, professional, unshaken. When a reporter asked, "Is it true your wife poisoned you?" he smiled politely and said, "I'll let the truth speak for itself." That line alone went viral. It painted him as the wronged man, strong, silent, dignified. Janelle, however, began to crack. Her sponsorships were withdrawn, her modeling agency dropped her, and the same media that once worshipped her beauty now tore her apart. Behind closed doors, she spiraled. She called him one night, her voice trembling. "Phil, please, let's talk. You don't have to destroy me." He listened quietly before answering. "You already destroyed yourself, Janelle. You just needed someone to hold up the mirror." There was a long silence, then a broken whisper. "I loved you, Phil." He sighed. "You loved the idea of control. That's not love." But even as he spoke, part of him felt the ache of old memories, the laughter, the shared dreams, the woman he once believed in. Pain still lived there, somewhere between anger and nostalgia. Susie, now visibly pregnant, urged him to move on. "She's not worth your energy," she said softly. "You've already won." Phil looked out the window at the city skyline. It's not about winning, Susie. It's about ending it the right way. The next morning, he filed for divorce, publicly, deliberately, ensuring every major outlet got the story straight from his lawyer. Attached to the documents was an affidavit detailing the poisoning. It was undeniable. By evening, the internet turned. Sympathy poured in for Phil. Outrage burned toward Janelle. For the first time in years, he slept peacefully. But peace, he soon realized, comes with a price. Because when a person loses everything, they have nothing left to fear. And Janelle, beautiful, broken, furious Janelle, wasn't finished with him yet. The divorce filing hit Janelle like a physical blow. Seeing her name splashed across headlines as the wife who poisoned her husband shattered the last piece of her carefully crafted image. The woman who once graced magazine covers was now the villain in every online thread. Brands pulled out. Friends stopped calling. Her phone, once buzzing with invitations, turned silent. But humiliation wasn't what broke her. It was seeing Phil smile again. She watched a TV clip of him standing beside Susie, hand protectively resting on her pregnant belly. His eyes shone with quiet pride, the kind she'd never seen before. That image burned her like acid. He was supposed to suffer. He was supposed to crawl back, begging for her forgiveness. Instead, he looked happy, free. And that Janelle couldn't bear. She began showing up near his office, waiting in her car just to catch a glimpse of him. Once, she followed him to a cafe, watching from across the street as he laughed with Susie. The laughter that used to belong to her. The smile she thought she owned. Jealousy twisted into obsession. One night she called Phil. He almost didn't answer. But when he finally picked up, her voice came through low, trembling, almost fragile. "Phil, can we talk? Just one last time. Please." He hesitated, then agreed. Against his better judgment. Maybe part of him still needed closure. They met at the apartment they once shared, the air heavy with ghosts of their past. Janelle stood by the window, wearing one of the dresses he'd bought her years ago. Her beauty was still there, but dimmed, like a dying flame. "You look tired," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "So do you." Then her expression hardened. "Do you really love her?" Phil met her gaze. "Yes." That one word broke her. She turned away, her shoulders shaking. "I gave you everything, Phil, my youth, my best years, and you walk away because of one mistake?" "You call poisoning me a mistake?" he said, disbelief cutting through his voice. "I did it for us," she cried. "You wanted kids. I wanted you. Children ruin things, they change love. I just wanted you to stay mine." Phil's voice was calm, but final. "You can't build love on fear, Janelle. You built a prison and called it marriage." Tears streaked her face. "Then I hope your freedom keeps you warm." He turned to leave, but her next words froze him mid-step. "I'm pregnant." Phil spun around, eyes wide. "That's not possible." She smiled faintly, almost proud. "You're right. It's not." For a long, unbearable silence, they stared at each other. It wasn't love anymore. It wasn't hate. It was something darker. A final goodbye wrapped in madness. Phil left without another word, and behind him, Janelle whispered to the empty room, "If I can't have you, no one will." For weeks, Phil tried to move on. He immersed himself in work, focused on preparing for the baby with Susie, and quietly hoped that time would heal the scars Janelle had left. But no matter how much he tried to push her out of his thoughts, she lingered like a shadow. And then, one morning as he was about to leave for work, he got a call. It was from Janelle. "Phil, we need to talk." Her voice was hoarse, tired, as though the weight of everything had finally broken her. He hesitated for a moment. Part of him wanted to hang up and move on, but something in her voice, raw, unguarded, pulled him in. "Where are you?" The address she gave him wasn't far from his office, a small apartment in a quieter part of the city. When he arrived, he found the door slightly ajar. Inside, Janelle sat on the floor, her back against the wall, staring blankly at the ceiling. There were no makeup, no perfect clothes, just a woman worn down by the very life she'd spent years building. "I didn't think you'd come," she said softly when she saw him. Phil didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, watching her, feeling the weight of everything that had happened between them. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't come here for you, Janelle. I came because I wanted closure. I wanted to know why you did it." She took a long, shaky breath. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought if I could keep you from having kids, I could keep you. Keep everything I built. I was afraid, Phil. Afraid of losing you, of losing my beauty, of becoming ordinary." The vulnerability in her voice took him by surprise. He didn't expect this side of Janelle. The woman who'd once seemed so confident, so self-assured, now appeared small, broken even. "I didn't need you to be perfect," he said quietly. "I just needed you to be real. And when you kept denying me what I wanted most, when you played God with my future." His voice faltered for a moment. "You poisoned everything." She nodded, eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I know. I'm sorry, Phil. I know I can never take it back." There was a long silence between them. Phil thought about the years they'd spent together, The love, the lies, the deception. He thought about the future he was building with Susie, the child on the way. I'm not sure I can forgive you, Janelle. I'm not sure I'll ever understand what you did. But you have to understand something too, he said, his tone firm. I'm done living in your shadow. I'm done with the games. Janelle's face crumpled, but she didn't cry. She just nodded, knowing she'd already lost him. I'll get a lawyer to sort things out, Phil added, standing up. But I'm not looking for revenge. I'm just looking for peace. As he turned to leave, Janelle's voice stopped him. Phil. He paused, turning back to her. You deserve happiness, you always have. Phil's heart wavered for a moment, but he didn't look back. As he walked out of the apartment, he realized that closure wasn't a moment. It was a choice. And he was choosing to walk forward, leaving the past behind. Janelle watched him go, knowing she couldn't fix what was broken.